So picture this scenario, right? You've got two different people.
Okay.
They both go to the doctor, they get their blood drawn, and the lab results come back. And on paper, they have the exact same estrogen levels.
Right. Completely identical.
Totally normal. But in reality, one of them feels, perfectly calm, balanced, energetic.
Yeah.
And the other person is just battling constant irritability, deep exhaustion, and like this bloating that just will not quit.
Oh, man.
Right. They are absolutely miserable. But the doctor just points to the paper and says, well, look, your numbers are perfectly fine.
And that is so frustrating. I mean, we place so much trust to that piece of paper, right?
We really do.
We trust that binary idea of normal versus abnormal, and we completely dismiss the physical reality of what the body is actually signaling to us.
Yeah, the numbers just become the final authority.
Exactly, rather than treating them as just, one piece of a much larger metabolic puzzle.
And that discrepancy, that gap between the paper and reality, is really the core of our deep dive today.
It's a huge topic.
It really is. We are looking at a stack of sources today, breaking down this phenomenon called estrogen dominance.
Right.
And it's this hidden hormone trap that affects millions of people, but it rarely gets talked about until the symptoms become totally unmanageable.
Yeah, until you're at your breaking point.
Exactly. So our mission today is to figure out what this actually is, why those normal lab results might basically be lying to you, and how really mundane things like touching a grocery store receipt.
Oh, yeah, that part is wild.
Right. How that could be mechanically altering your body's balance.
Well, and right out of the gate, I think the term dominance itself sets up a bit of a stumbling block for people.
How so?
Because when people hear estrogen dominance, they immediately assume their body has gone rogue. Right?
Yeah, like it's making way too much.
Exactly. They picture this hormone factory just working overtime, pumping out massive amounts of abnormal estrogen.
Which makes sense intuitively. I mean, if something is dominant, you assume there has to be too much of it. But if it's not an absolute overproduction of estrogen, then what's actually going on?
It is entirely about the ratio. I mean, estrogen doesn't just act alone in a vacuum. It's constantly in this, biological dance with its counterbalance, which is progesterone.
Okay, so they work together.
Right. You really cannot evaluate estrogen's impact without looking at how it exists relative to progesterone.
So if we use an analogy, we're looking at a seesaw.
I love that analogy.
Right. So estrogen is sitting on one side and progesterone is sitting on the other side.
Hmm.
And if they are both roughly the same weight, the seesaw is balanced. It's hovering right in the middle. You feel fine, and you honestly don't even think about your hormones at all.
Yeah, because everything's working properly. But let's look at the biology of how that seesaw actually operates in real life.
Okay.
Because as we move into our late 30s, which is, a full decade before any traditional signs of menopause even show up.
Wait, a full decade?
Oh, easily.
So what?
Yeah, in your late 30s, ovulation naturally becomes just a little less consistent. And this is crucial because progesterone is primarily produced by the corpus luteum, which is this temporary structure that only forms in the ovary after an egg is released.
Ah, okay. Meaning, if you don't release an egg that month,
Exactly.
you don't build that temporary structure, and so you don't get that surge of progesterone.
Precisely. You basically experience an anovulatory cycle. So as ovulation starts skipping a beat here and there as we get older, your overall progesterone production drops.
Right.
And the key here is that it drops much faster than your estrogen production does.
So going back to the seesaw, progesterone effectively just jumps off its side of the playground equipment.
Yes.
Which means the estrogen side just crashes straight down to the ground. Estrogen becomes the heaviest thing there.
Right.
But the estrogen side didn't actually gain a single pound. The raw amount of estrogen circulating in your body is exactly the same as it was yesterday. It's unopposed now.
And that unopposed state, that is what creates all the physical havoc. This completely explains why those basic lab results you mentioned earlier are so deceiving.
Because they're measuring the wrong thing.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
A standard blood test might just measure the absolute volume of estrogen, see that it falls within this totally average normal range, and just flag it as fine.
Wow.
It isn't necessarily measuring the ratio, and it certainly isn't accounting for the fact that progesterone has basically left the building.
Okay, so if the basic lab printout isn't giving you the whole story, what are the actual red flags happening in the body? Because if you don't know this mechanism is happening, I imagine it's incredibly easy to walk around feeling terrible and just accept it as your new normal.
Oh, people do it all the time. The visible signs are often just dismissed as, isolated annoyances.
Like what?
Well, we're talking about suddenly heavy or really unpredictable periods,
Okay.
or breast tenderness that starts showing up every single month like absolute clockwork, because estrogen actually stimulates breast tissue growth.
Oh, I see.
And then there is the really stubborn weight gain, specifically right around the hips in the midsection, that suddenly just refuses to budge no matter how much you diet or exercise.
Yeah, the sources we looked at also dig into mood swings, but they describe them in a really specific way.
Yes, they do.
It's not just feeling kind of sad. It's a mood swing that feels entirely disproportionate to whatever is actually happening in your life right then.
Exactly.
Like, you know your reaction doesn't make logical sense in the moment, but you physically cannot rein it in.
Right, because that unopposed estrogen is basically overstimulating the brain. And then on top of that, you have the hidden signs, which are super insidious because they just mimic general burnout.
Big exhaustion and stuff.
Yeah, and persistent bloating, because estrogen causes water retention in your tissues. Plus, major changes in your sleep architecture.
Right, waking up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, where you are suddenly waking up at 3 a.m. with this totally racing mind,
Yeah.
and you just cannot get back to sleep, and having a deeply uncharacteristic short fuse.
It's so wild because if you are experiencing all of those things, the bad sleep, the short fuse, the weight gain, it is almost a total reflex to just blame it on external stuff.
Oh, 100%.
You just say, well, work is really stressful right now, or I don't know, I'm just getting older.
Yep, it's the cost of being an adult.
Right. We write it off as the standard cost of being a busy adult, completely unaware that our hormonal seesaw has just slammed into the dirt.
And woven together, this is the reality that millions of people are quietly enduring for an entire decade in their 30s and 40s.
Okay, so if progesterone dropping is what tips the seesaw on one side, that covers half the equation. But the sources point out something really fascinating about the other side.
Yeah, the estrogen side itself.
Right. Even if the ovaries aren't pumping out extra estrogen, the estrogen side of the seesaw can actually get heavier. And the explanation for that has absolutely nothing to do with the ovaries.
No, it doesn't.
It comes down to how the body processes its waste, right?
Yes, and this requires a major shift in how we usually view hormones, because we really tend to think of them strictly as an ovary issue.
Right, a reproductive thing.
Exactly. But the liver actually plays this massive central mechanical role.
The liver.
Yeah. Once a molecule of estrogen has done its job,
Right.
Stimulating tissue, supporting your bone density, whatever, it is considered used.
Okay.
It can't just be in circulation forever. It has to be cleared out.
Mm.
And the liver is the organ responsible for metabolizing that used estrogen, chemically altering it so it becomes water-soluble, and then sending it to the digestive tract to be eliminated.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm getting this. The liver is effectively a biological recycling plant.
Perfect analogy.
The used estrogen comes in. The liver enzymes act like little workers, breaking it down. They pack it into this water-soluble box and load it onto the digestive tructs to be driven out of the body.
That captures the mechanics perfectly. The liver basically operates in 2 phases of detoxification to achieve that.
Oh.
But we have to ask, what happens if those liver enzymes are just completely bogged down dealing with other immediate threats?
Ah, like what kind of threats?
Let's say the liver is busy processing a few glasses of alcohol you had with dinner, or it's managing the inflammation from poor sleep, or filtering out a constant stream of synthetic chemicals from your environment.
So the recycling plant just backs up.
Exactly.
The workers are busy dealing with the alcohol, so they literally can't process the old estrogen fast enough.
The clearance process just grinds to a halt.
Mm-hmm.
But the body cannot just stockpile all this used estrogen indefinitely in the liver. So that unprocessed used estrogen gets released back into your bloodstream.
Wait, it just goes back in?
It recirculates. Yeah. So now your body's dealing with your normal daily production of new estrogen plus yesterday's uncleared waste circulating right alongside it,
Wow.
which totally compounds the heavy side of the seesaw.
So that is a mechanical failure of the clearance system, not a production problem at all. But the sources detail a second failure point that happens even further down the line. Because even if the liver manages to do its job, right? It packages up the used estrogen, puts it into the digestive tract. The gut can actually sabotage the entire process.
Yeah, this part is wild. The gut microbiome's role here is called the estrobolome.
The ester bubble.
No, it's a specific collection of bacteria, and their entire job is to modulate the circulation of estrogens.
Okay.
But when your gut health is compromised, maybe by really high stress or antibiotic use or just a low-fiber diet, certain opportunistic bacteria just start to proliferate.
And what do they do?
Well, these bacteria produce a specific enzyme. It's called beta-glucuronidase.
And what does that enzyme actually do to the packaged estrogen that the liver just sent down?
It basically acts like a pair of chemical scissors.
Really?
Yeah, it literally cleaves the bond that the liver just works so hard to create. It unpacks the used estrogen, reverting it right back into its active form.
Oh my gosh. So the recycling truck is driving the waste out of town, but these rogue gut bacteria hijack the truck, snip the packaging off the trash, and just dump the active estrogen right back into the bloodstream through the intestinal lining.
That's exactly what happens.
They are actively undoing the liver's hard work.
It's biological sabotage at the microscopic level. And this mechanism is exactly why estrogen dominance so frequently overlaps with chronic digestive complaints, like bloating or irregularity.
That makes so much sense.
If your gut microbiome is off, that reactivation process just kicks into overdrive, and you are literally constantly reabsorbing your own hormonal waste.
Framing this as a whole body issue, the ovaries, the liver, and the gut, it shifts the perspective completely.
It really does.
Because if you realize your liver is just a backed up recycling plant and your gut bacteria are hijacking the trucks, you don't have to just throw your hands up and surrender to your genetics. Right?
No, not at all.
You can actually look at the daily, totally modifiable factors that are overwhelming those systems in the first place.
Which brings us directly to the environmental load.
Yeah.
What exactly is bogging down the liver's capacity to do its job?
Right. And the research introduces this category of chemicals called xenoestrogens.
Yes.
Which are basically synthetic compounds that we interact with constantly.
Xenoestrogens are known as endocrine disruptors because mechanically, their molecular structure is just similar enough to actual human estrogen that they act like a skeleton key.
A skeleton key, wow.
Yeah, they can literally slip right into the estrogen receptors on your cells, unlock them, and trigger a cellular response as if real estrogen had just arrived.
So they're essentially chemical imposters sending fake signals all over the body.
Exactly.
And the sources highlight that they are in heavily used everyday items like plastics, especially when they're heated, right? Because that increases the kinetic energy and breaks the chemical bonds, leaching these compounds directly into your food. And conventional cosmetics, skincare products loaded with those synthetic phthalate-based fragrances.
Oh, they are everywhere. They're even found in the chemical coating on standard grocery store receipts.
Okay, stop right there.
I know.
I really have to push back on the receipt example because it just sounds so alarmist.
It really does sound crazy.
Right. I hold a grocery receipt for maybe 3 seconds before crumpling it up and throwing it in a bag. You're telling me that a 3-second interaction with a piece of paper is enough time for chemicals to enter my bloodstream and alter my hormones? How is that mechanically even possible?
It is a totally fair question, and it really comes down to how the chemical is applied to the paper.
Okay.
The thermal paper uses bisphenol A or bisphenol S as a developer, but it isn't chemically bound to the paper fibers. It's just this loose, powdery coating on top.
Oh, so it just rubs off.
Instantly. When you touch it, it transfers to your skin right away.
Yeah.
And here is the kicker. If your hands are damp, or if you recently applied lotion or hand sanitizer.
Which everyone uses constantly now.
Exactly. Those products contain penetration enhancers. So that chemical doesn't just sit on the surface of your skin. It dissolves and absorbs directly into your dermal blood vessels.
Right. Oh.
It bypasses the digestive system and the liver's first-pass metabolism entirely.
So by using hand sanitizer and then grabbing a receipt, you are basically creating an express lane for artificial hormones straight into your bloodstream.
You really are.
That completely changes how I view just a standard morning routine. Think about it. Reheating coffee in a plastic travel mug, slathering on this heavily scented lotion after a hot shower when your pores are all open, and then touching a receipt at the cafe. You are essentially microdosing xenoestrogens before you even start the workday.
Right. And to be clear, it is the compounding effect that really matters here.
Okay, so one receipt isn't going to end the world.
No. A single plastic container or touching one receipt isn't going to collapse your endocrine system. The body is highly resilient. But when you stack that morning routine 365 days a year, for a decade, you are maintaining a constant low-grade stream of xenoestrogens, and your liver has to constantly filter that out, which steals its metabolic bandwidth away from clearing your actual estrogen.
The sources shared this case study of Sarah, right? She was a 38-year-old dealing with this exact compounding effect.
Yeah, the story was super eye-opening.
She was experiencing severe mood swings, incredibly heavy periods, and that monthly breast tenderness. But she just assumed it was the stress of her demanding job. So she pushed through it for nearly a year.
Which is what we do, right? We constantly normalize our own suffering, just writing it off as another symptom of modern life.
Totally. But she eventually learned about this cumulative chemical load. And the amazing thing is she didn't do some radical, expensive cleanse or anything.
Nope.
She just swapped her plastic food storage for glass containers to stop the leaching. She switched to much simpler, fragrance-free skincare. And she prioritized getting actual restorative sleep.
Simple changes.
And within a few months, her mood steadied out, the tenderness faded. She proved just how powerful reducing that daily exposure can be for the liver's capacity.
And Sarah's story also shatters a major misconception.
Which one?
Well, she was 38. We are so conditioned to assume hormone dysfunction only strikes during the final stages of menopause, in your late 40s or 50s.
Right.
But this estrogen dominance pattern, it quietly builds in the background a full decade earlier.
And it is not just a women's issue either, which is another huge blind spot we have. Men are dealing with this exact same compounding effect.
Yes. The underlying mechanisms operate slightly differently, obviously, because of testosterone dynamics, but men experience a highly comparable pattern of estrogen dominance.
Interesting.
And for men, it is heavily tied to the biological function of body fat.
Because fat tissue isn't just like inert energy storage just sitting there doing nothing. It's metabolically active. It actually produces estrogen itself.
Exactly. Adipose tissue, which is your fat cells, they contain an enzyme called aromatase. And aromatase's specific job is to convert testosterone into estrogen.
Wow, okay.
So the more body fat a man carries, the more aromatase activity occurs, and the more his testosterone is actively converted into estrogen.
The sources outline the case of Michael. He was a father in his early 40s, and he had this stubborn midsection weight that he just assumed was his new quote-unquote dad bod.
Right, just aging.
Yeah. His energy was tanking, his motivation was gone, and he really thought it was just the inevitable decline of getting older.
But his seesaw was completely tipped. His fat tissue was actively producing extra estrogen via that aromatase conversion, and his liver was likely super bogged down from environmental load and daily stressors, which left that estrogen to just recirculate.
So how did he fix it?
Yeah.
He pulled the lifestyle levers.
Mm-hmm.
He cut back his daily alcohol intake, which immediately freed up his liver enzymes to process estrogen instead of the ethanol.
Huge step.
He focused on sleep, and he started strength training to actually change his body composition, which reduced the aromatase activity. And his stubborn weight finally started shifting because he fixed the underlying hormonal mechanism.
And those lifestyle levers are totally universal.
Mm-hmm.
But if we are looking at the major mechanisms that tip the scales for both men and women, we really cannot ignore the role of stress.
Okay, let's dig into the mechanics of stress, because we hear stress is bad for you constantly. It's almost a cliche.
Yeah, it really is.
But does a tough week at work or just chronic anxiety about bills actually change your hormones on a mechanical level?
It alters them drastically.
Yeah.
And it's through a process known as the pregnenolone steal. Some call it biological cortisol theft.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, cortisol is your primary stress hormone. And in the human body, cortisol and progesterone are manufactured from the exact same precursor material, which is a master hormone called pregnenolone.
Okay, so they share the exact same chemical building blocks.
Yes, they are pulling from the exact same biological inventory. And your body is fundamentally wired for short-term survival above all else.
Right.
So if you are chronically stressed-like, you're answering work emails at midnight, you're running on 4 hours of sleep, you're constantly anxious, your nervous system perceives that as a literal survival threat.
Like a tiger is chasing you.
Exactly. It's no different than being chased by a predator to your brain. Evolution dictates that the body will always prioritize survival over reproduction.
Okay.
Therefore, it will prioritize making cortisol over making progesterone.
Wow. It literally steals the building blocks needed for progesterone just to keep pumping out stress hormones.
Yep.
Which means by being chronically stressed out, you are actively draining your own progesterone levels, forcing that estrogen side of the seesaw to slam into the ground even harder.
You really are. You cannot out-supplement or out-diet a lifestyle that is constantly stealing your progesterone to fuel chronic stress. The mechanism simply won't allow it.
Okay, so we've identified the mechanical saboteurs here. We have the overwhelmed liver recycling plant. We've got the rogue gut bacteria armed with chemical scissors, the xenoestrogens acting like skeleton keys, and this biological theft caused by chronic stress.
That's quite the lineup.
It is. So knowing exactly how these mechanisms work, how do we level the seesaw back out?
Well, the research strongly emphasizes that biological balance is achieved through gradual, sustainable modulation.
Not a crash diet.
No, an overnight extreme overhaul usually just creates way more metabolic stress. The daily blueprint to reclaim balance really relies on small, highly specific actions.
So let's start with the dietary inputs. It's basically about giving your recycling plant the precise tools it needs. The sources highlight cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. Why those specifically?
Because cruciferous vegetables contain a highly specific compound called DIM, diindolylmethane. Mechanically, DIM acts on the liver to shift estrogen metabolism away from the inflammatory DNA-damaging pathways and pushes it down the protective, healthy clearance pathways.
Oh, that's amazing.
It literally helps the liver enzymes process the waste correctly.
And then to address the gut, to stop those rogue bacteria from hijacking the recycling trucks, the blueprint suggests adding ground flaxseed.
Flaxseed is brilliant for this because it contains high levels of lignans, which are a type of phytoestrogen that binds to the used estrogen in your digestive tract. It basically locks it up so the beta-glucuronidase enzyme can't cleave it.
So it puts a lock on the trash can.
Exactly. Plus, the specific fiber in flaxseed feeds your beneficial gut bacteria, which naturally suppresses those opportunistic bacteria that are causing the problem in the first place.
Those are really powerful, simple additions. And on the reduction side, the most obvious mechanical fix is to just stop heating food in plastic.
Please. Yes.
When you microwave a plastic container, the heat energy destabilizes the chemical bonds, causing those xenoestrogens to physically migrate right into your food.
The direct transfer.
Yeah. So swapping to a glass bowl for warm meals eliminates that exposure entirely.
And we also have to moderate alcohol. As we discussed, the liver operates on a triage system. It will always process ethanol first because it is an acute toxin to the body.
Right.
While it's busy processing your Friday night cocktails, your estrogen metabolism is just paused, leaving the hormone to recirculate.
And the third pillar of this blueprint involves physical routines. Strength training is essential because building muscle mass improves insulin sensitivity, and it reduces the amount of estrogen produced by that aromatase enzyme in excess fat tissue.
Exactly. And perhaps most importantly, we must protect the repair window, which is sleep.
Crucial.
The sources recommend a solid 7 to 9 hours of consistent deep sleep because the liver's deepest phase of detoxification and hormone clearance happens while you are in slow-wave sleep.
So if you are chronically cutting your sleep short, you are prematurely shutting down the recycling plant before it finishes its shift.
Precisely.
And tying back to the pregnenolone steal, deliberate stress management is a total non-negotiable mechanic. You have to protect your progesterone inventory.
Yes.
Whether that means implementing a strict cutoff for work emails, practicing breathing exercises to downregulate the nervous system, or just fiercely protecting your downtime.
It is remarkable how seemingly small behavioral changes genuinely alter how your biology operates on a cellular level.
Which is really the ultimate takeaway if you're dealing with these mysterious symptoms, right? Your health isn't some destination that you suddenly arrive at one day.
Let's not.
It is a direction you choose, metabolic step by metabolic step.
Beautifully said.
The choices you make, reaching for that glass bowl instead of the plastic container, adding flaxseed to your morning oatmeal to bind the waste, or just deciding to prioritize an extra hour of sleep instead of scrolling on your phone, they quietly, mechanically add up.
They do. They tip the seesaw back into balance.
Exactly. But before we finish up today, there is one final, really provocative piece of data from the research regarding xenoestrogens that just completely reframes our environment.
Oh, this part blew my mind.
Right. We focus mostly on things we actively consume or apply to our skin. But the sources note that the synthetic materials used to build our homes, the flame retardants on our furniture, the off-gassing from our carpets, they eventually just break down and settle into common household dust.
It's crazy.
Household dust carries these endocrine-disrupting compounds.
Yes. They bind right to the dust particles, which we then inhale or accidentally ingest constantly.
Wow.
And these compounds accumulate in the body over time with prolonged indoor exposure. It raises this profound question about modern living.
It really does.
If our highly synthetic indoor environments are acting as a slow drip of artificial hormones through the very air we breathe, How much of what we accept as the inevitable wear and tear of, stress and aging is actually just our bodies reacting to the buildings we live and work in?
If your daily environment is constantly pushing down on one side of the hormonal seesaw without you even knowing it, the numbers on a standard lab test will truly never tell you the whole story. Something to ponder the next time you're stuck indoors all day.